You might come to wonder how come it's came and not cummed. Or you might have noticed that I beginned this video a little differently. Where do these so-called strong verbs come from? Well, this is a word facts video. You might have an urge to call these so-called strong verbs irregular verbs simply because they modify themselves internally rather than using an ed and other sorts of suffixes and prefixes in order to conjugate, but these are just as regular for the most part. The only difference is that there are different systems, 7 to be exact. However, these are fairly similar for the most part. These classes go from 1 to 7, with the present form first I, then the past O, and then en, such as drive, drove, driven. In class 2, it's usually an E sound or something similar, and then an O, and then an ON, such as freeze, froze, frozen, or fly, flown, and then flown again. However, these ones are slightly more irregular than in class 1. In class 3, it's a very regular system of I, A, U when they're written in English, such as swim, swam, swum, or drink, drank, drunk. Class 4 is usually an E in the present, an O in the past, and an ON in the participle form, such as get, got, gotten, or steal, stole, stolen, or swear, swore, sworn. However, you'll notice that there is some more variation to the present tense form, but not as much to the other two. Class 5, you will see with the E and then a letter A, sometimes A or A in pronunciation, and then an I, N, such as give, gave, given, or eat, ate, eaten, with some variation but not too much. Class 6 is an A sound followed by an sound, and then an AN, such as shake, shook, shaken, and take, took, taken. Finally, class 7 is the most divided among them, with an A or an O, and either an E or an U, and either an A or an UN in the present, past, and participle forms respectively, such as fall, fell, fallen, or throw, threw, thrown. So as you can see, it's very split. However, these are considered in the same class. As you can tell, there's a lot of division, but there's also a lot of regularity. However, the question isn't how do these verbs appear today, but instead, how did we get them in the first place? Given that so many verbs in English are weak, that is to say that they only change with affixes like ed rather than using internal vowel changes, why aren't all of them that way? What we think of as the origins of Germanic strong verbs are even older than the existence of Proto-Germanic itself before it split off from Proto-Indo-European. Nevertheless, originally there was only 1 or 2 classes like we saw before, and this is why we have so many that look so similar today. Originally, the vowels would have been E-based, which is why most of the present tense forms will have an E or an E or an I sound today. And the second most common was O-based syllables, which is why, again, there are so many O-based forms in the table that we still have in English now. There was also a 0 grading, which means that there was no vowel for the basis of the syllable, and that's why there's some variability today, though of course there's also variability because these have been going on for thousands of years and languages will inevitably change over time. Whether or not that means we'll get more or less strong verbs is irrelevant. So while originally there was a lot more similarity between how the forms of strong verbs looked in the past to how they appear now, there is also a bigger difference between how they were used in the past and how they're used now. Now they're used to distinguish between tenses, such as present tense, and past tense, such as begin and began, but in the past they distinguish between aspects. Aspects also relate to time in the similar way to tense, perhaps, but in a very different way, such as with an ongoing aspect and a perfect aspect that we have now. This can be seen with I ate, which is a completed action and is therefore perfect, and I was eating, which is an ongoing action, and they are different in aspect even though they are both past tense. While these strong verbs have been on the decline for centuries, as is true in most Germanic languages now, English still does get a few new forms from originally weak verbs, such as snuck instead of sneaked, snows instead of sneezed, and most popularly perhaps, dove instead of dived. However, these forms are still technically irregular rather than wholly strong, because nobody would say doven or snucken or something else that would fit within any one of the 7 classes. However, this innovation does show the way that people are able to recreate new words from a sense they have about what class they might be in, and shows an awareness of phonetics that people might not even realize that they have. If you want to learn more about this, there's a blog post on word facts that will be in the link in the description. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and if you really liked it, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Maybe even share it. You can also check out more from the original blog, where there are well over 1,200 posts, and you can visit our Patreon for more content and to support the channel. Thank you very much.